Good morning. My name is Victor Moszczyński, and I'm speaking to you from self-isolation in London. We're in a country which has already had more than 6,000 deaths from coronavirus, 55,000 supposedly infected, but actually we know that's a good deal more because not all the infections are recorded. We know that nearly 1.5 million have been infected throughout the world. 82,000 have died worldwide. We know that in Europe and America, according to The Economist, $8 trillion have been promised to support industry, including private industry and the health services, supporting people's wages. Effectively, we have health workers battling. They're the new front line, and they're the new army that protects us. And this new battle that Bill Gates had told us is going to be coming 5 years ago, which he predicted. They're without adequate personal protection, delayed testing equipment, insufficient number of beds and respirators, no vaccine available to cure the disease before next year. Although tremendous efforts are being made by the government. We have the new hospitals, for instance, sprouting up, the new Nightingale hospitals. But there is a great sense of solidarity, equality currently in society, which is very noble and positive. But that's working in the short run, but over a longer period, there is likely to be tension, real economic hardship. And especially if there is no visible reduction in the number of infections and deaths in the near future. And in order to maintain social cohesion, the government's got to is inviting the opposition parties to join. We don't know how long this danger will last, whether our health, our economy, our personal sanity will survive. But as the crisis progresses through, we need to look forward, and I can see sort of 15 new aspects of what society will be like when this is over. Firstly, the control on social distancing that's been introduced. In the democracies, this will largely, gradually, not immediately, because it will change in regions and it's maybe reduced and then imposed again and so on, depending on the fluctuations with the virus. But gradually, we will have our freedom of movement restored. We can expect that in countries like the UK and Western Europe and the United States. However, in the other so-called authoritarian democracies, inverted commas, like Russia, India, Egypt, Turkey, Hungary, it's very likely that the emergency legislation could remain in force on personal freedom for much, much longer. And if these governments had proved themselves to be incompetent during the crisis, they could face considerable unrest as a result, even revolution. Second point is that the radical economic measures taken by the government, they're not likely to be reduced that quickly. The 80% job guarantees, the tax and mortgage holidays, the nationalisation of the rail industries effectively and the airlines, that could remain in force for longer as the government supervises the recovery of a fragmented economy. And we want to see that what's likely that is that the post-virus UK economy, the public will not expect to have the economic austerity returned, the social inequalities of the past. Because there's a sort of form likely to be of a kind of coalition government, a state control of many industries in this period and services, a planned decentralized economy, that could stay in force for quite a few years more, just as it did after the Second World War, when people wanted to retain the certainties of a social restructuring then. This may be very difficult for the governing party, and I think that some of them may very well split off from this, and there will be a coalition government that will then have to commit itself to maintaining, at least for a few years, a planned central economy in order to maintain the more egalitarian, socially cohesive aspects of the crisis, impose a higher taxation rates, fairly distributed between the more and the less wealthy. 3, the health service budget is now likely to replace military spending as the main priority of any government, including the UK. Protection against viruses will replace the protection against missiles, just as Gates predicted, as Bill Gates predicted. The health industry workers and the international research scientists, particularly on medical issues, but not only, they will form the new elite of society, the new media celebrities, perhaps even the new political leaders. Point 4, that the second only to the health service will be the concern over constant modernization of information technology, importance of IT workers, the accessible broadband, the need for artificial intelligence to expand the defense of cyberspace. Increasingly, decisions will be made at video conferences meetings within government bodies, within commercial companies, both nationally and internationally. More employees will work online from home. IT experts, especially in the field of security, will replace the current dominant role of accountants in company boards. And 5, the need for commuter, international travel, that will be considerably reduced as more of us start working at home. And transport companies are likely to be used more and more, and airlines to be used more and more for recreation, for tourism, rather than for business travel. Excuse me. 6, border restrictions, even when they are reduced, say within the Schengen countries in Europe, they will still be retained to control transmission of epidemics from country to country. 7, education at school and at university will be more and more reliant on IT skills and on online individual teaching. That is one of the things that's likely to remain, particularly as education and the younger people thrive on IT in any case. 8, the high street will wither away unless it becomes an entertainment hub as well as a shopping centre. Retail shops which have no online sales they'll become obsolete. 9, future governments would be wise to acknowledge the role of manual labour in maintaining the health service, the care industry, refuse collection, strategic industries such as car making, agriculture. All of those will now require a decent level of income and a social status. 10 is the current reduction worldwide in the use of transport and industry will give a welcome pause to global warming. It'll give us a chance to try and put climate control legislation back into motion. But this will be difficult because there will be enormous pressure for reindustrialization and the continued challenge to climate control in countries such as the United States and Russia and Brazil, and that could undermine any gains that we get from that pause in global warming. Now, 11, with the onset of world recession and the growing threat of the coronaviruses in poorer third world countries with limited medical resources and lack of adequate urban space for social distancing, as well as lack of water, the resulting COVID-19 pandemic could be accompanied by major famine and the increasing pressure from economic and health refugees seeking out safer new life in the more prosperous countries in Asia, Europe, the Americas. More social movement, greater famine, consequently interventionist international cooperation, such as the proposed World Bank $160 billion loan currently to poorer countries to be issued next month, or the moratorium on third world debt. That's likely to grow at global and regional level and become more and more a matter of concern, despite the challenge of nationalism within the more so-called prosperous countries. 12, globalism will change its character, will be less reliant on uninhibited free trade that we're so used to, and more on centrally managed international strategies, such as what we had after the Second World War with the Marshall Plan and so on. International summits like the recent G20 based in Saudi Arabia are likely to be managed again with all the world leaders participating, but through online conference calls rather than personal travel, and they'll be as concerned with health, education, information technology as much as with the economy. 13, the European Union, faced with hostility from Russia, China, the United States, nationalism within its own borders, it will struggle to retain its relevance. It has to challenge the nationalist agenda in each country, agree to the continuation or to the issue of corona bonds, to support the weaker Mediterranean economies. It must maintain outside EU borders in facing the new new movement of migrants from famine-ridden countries, and take a lead in ensuring a resilient health service fighting these and future epidemics in each country in the EU. If it doesn't do that, the EU will just die. 14, because of the continued UK-US withdrawal under its current presidency from world leadership, the 21st century is likely to be a Chinese century. China, having survived the coronavirus epidemic so quickly, it continues to supply medical expertise, supplies throughout the world. It gives crucial low-interest loans to third world countries increasingly struggling with the virus. Chinese-style intensified social control, cybersecurity, lack of human rights will unfortunately increasingly become the model for the poorer countries in the newer world earlier, and the more developed countries as well. And in 15, and a reflection of that, the mirror image of that is that Western liberal democracies, even if they survive themselves as democracies, they will no longer be the universal model for development in the world as they had been in the 20th century, and they will be under constant challenge, both from authoritarian regimes and from nationalist movements within them. So, my friends, prepare yourselves. Once the virus is over, there will be a brave new world to which we have to adjust. Many thanks for listening.